Before you hear the story, understand one thing. Aokigahara Forest does not scare people away. It calms them. Phones fail here, compasses lose erection, and people swear the forest knows exactly who shouldn't leave. Some entered looking for answers. Some entered looking for silence, but what they found was something listening. Because this is not a place where people get lost. This is a place where people are slowly convinced they belong, and once that feeling starts making sense, the forest has already chosen you. Aokigahara. The forest that rejects the living in this forest. Silence isn't peaceful. It's watching you. Compasses spin here, but people swear it's their thoughts that lose direction first. Aokigahara doesn't chase you, it waits. Many entered with clear intentions, none returned the same. At the northwest base of Mount Fuji lies a forest so dense, so unnaturally quiet, that even seasoned explorers hesitate before stepping inside. This is Aokigahara Forest, known across the world as Japan's most mysterious and feared woodland. From above, it looks beautiful, a sea of deep green stretching endlessly, but once you enter, something immediately feels wrong. The air is heavy, not humid, heavy, as if it presses against your chest. Sunlight struggles to reach the forest floor, creating long shadows that don't seem to move with the sun. And the silence, it's absolute. No birds, no insects, no wind. Experts say the forest grew on hardened lava from Mount Fuji's ancient eruptions. The ground beneath your feet is jagged, uneven, and filled with hidden caves and tunnels. Each step produces hollow echoes, disorienting your sense of distance and direction. And then there's the first warning sign at the forest's entrance. Japanese authorities place boards that don't talk about wildlife or terrain. Instead, they carry messages like, "Your life is precious. Think of your family. Please reconsider." Because Aokigahara is not known for what lives there, but for those who came here to disappear. Over the decades, hundreds of people have entered this forest seeking solitude, or something far more final. But what many don't realize is that Aokigahara has a reputation even darker than its tragic history. Search and rescue teams report strange experiences that defy logic. Phones lose signal within minutes. GPS systems malfunction. Compasses spin wildly, refusing to settle on north. But the most disturbing reports have nothing to do with technology. Experienced hikers, people trained to survive in extreme environments, have spoken about a presence, a sensation of being followed, even when no footprints appear behind them. A feeling that grows stronger the deeper they go. Some describe it as pressure in the head. Others say their thoughts begin to feel unfamiliar, as if someone else is quietly suggesting ideas they didn't be. Japanese folklore speaks of yurei, restless spirits bound to places of deep emotional pain. According to legend, when a soul dies with overwhelming regret or sorrow, it doesn't leave. It lingers. And Aokigahara, soaked in decades of despair, is believed to hold many. Hikers have found personal items scattered throughout the forest, shoes neatly placed beside trees, letters weighed down with stones, ribbons tied to branches. Some say these ribbons are markers, used by people hoping to find their way back. Others believe they serve a different purpose, to remind the forest that someone was there. The deeper you walk, the more the forest seems to close around you. Paths become harder to distinguish. Sounds feel closer than they should be. Distance loses meaning. And then comes the moment many survivors describe the sudden urge to stop walking. No fear, no panic, just a powerful sense that this is where you should stay. Psychologists argue it's the effect of isolation and silence. But that explanation falls apart when multiple people experience the same sensation. In the same location, at the same time. Aokigahara doesn't attack. It doesn't threaten. It simply waits, patient, silent, and certain. And once you begin to understand why people say this forest changes those who enter, you also begin to understand why some visitors swear they heard something calling to them from deeper inside. Something that knew their name. The voices that know your name, people don't hear screams in Aokigahara. They hear invitations. Search teams are trained to ignore voices, even if they sound familiar. Some recordings captured whispers no human heard at the time. The forest doesn't shout, it calls softly. Those who have never entered Aokigahara imagine it as a place of darkness and fear. Survivors describe something far more disturbing. They describe voices, not loud, not threatening, just close enough to be noticed. At first, it sounds like the wind slipping between trees. But then the sound changes. It becomes structured, rhythmic, almost intentional, and slowly, unmistakably, it starts to resemble speech. Hikers report hearing their names spoken clearly from just beyond the trees. What makes this terrifying isn't the sound itself, it's the familiarity. The voice doesn't sound like a stranger. It sounds like someone you trust. A friend, a sibling, a loved one, long gone. Japanese search and rescue teams working in Aokigahara follow strict protocols. One of the most important rules is simple: never follow a voice. Veteran rescuers have shared stories of hearing colleagues calling for help, only to discover later that the person was never there. In some cases, the voice came from deep inside the forest, where no path existed. One rescuer recalled hearing his own voice calling out, repeating a phrase he used often in daily life. The moment he realized what he was hearing, he froze, because the voice wasn't coming from behind him. It was coming from ahead. Audio engineers who analyzed recordings taken inside Aokigahara noticed something unsettling. Certain audio files contained whispers that were not perceived by the people recording them. These sounds only became noticeable during playback. Low-frequency murmurs, breathing, sometimes faint laughter. Psychologists explain this as auditory pareidolia, the brain finding patterns in random noise. But again, the theory fails when different people hear the same words in the same location, hours apart. There are areas in the forests locals refer to as echo zones, not because sound reflects, but because it returns altered. A step behind you sounds heavier than your own. A snap of a branch repeats twice, even when only one breaks. And then there's the feeling. Survivors often mention a sudden emotional shift, a deep sadness that doesn't belong to them. Memories surface without warning, regrets, guilt, unresolved moments from the past. Thoughts become louder, more intrusive. It's as if something is reaching into your mind and selecting what hurts the most. Japanese folklore offers a darker explanation. Legends say the forest is home to Yurei spirits bound by intense emotion. Unlike common ghost stories, Yurei are not violent. They are persuasive. They attach themselves to the living by reflecting familiar feelings and voices. According to these stories, the spirits don't chase travelers. They walk alongside them, unseen, slowly guiding them off the path. This belief explains another strange phenomenon. Many hikers who become lost report walking in circles, even while following a straight line. Marked trails suddenly disappear. Ribbons tied to trees are found untied, or missing. And sometimes, people realize hours later that they've been walking toward the voices, not away from them. One survivor described stopping suddenly, overwhelmed by the urge to sit down and listen. The voice sounded calm, reassuring. It told him everything would be fine if he just stayed. He said the most frightening part wasn't fear. It was how reasonable the voice sounded. Only when he noticed the forest had gone completely silent again did he realize something was wrong. No wind, no footsteps, no voice. Just the overwhelming sense that he had almost made a choice he couldn't undo. Because in Aokigahara, the voices don't appear at random. They grow stronger the deeper you go, especially near places where something terrible once happened. And as more evidence surfaced from inside the forest, it became clear that voices weren't the only traces left behind. Some discoveries were physical, some were recorded, and some were never officially reported at all. What the forest leaves behind, some objects found in Aokigahara were never listed in any report. Search teams are told what to document and what to ignore. Certain items appear untouched, no matter how much time passes. The forest doesn't erase people, it edits them. Deep inside Aokigahara, there are things that don't belong to nature. Not broken branches, not animal remains, but objects placed with intention. Shoes aligned neatly beside trees. Backpacks resting upright, as if waiting for their owner to return. Watches stopped at specific times, still strapped to wrists. Search teams are trained to catalog everything they find. Dates, locations, conditions. But former workers have admitted that not everything makes it into official records, because some discoveries don't make sense. Items that should have decayed years ago look almost new. Paper notes remain legible, despite rain, humidity, and time. Clothing found folded carefully, even in areas unreachable without effort. One volunteer described finding a camera still powered on, its battery somehow intact after weeks in the forest. When reviewed, the footage showed nothing unusual, until the final clip. The camera was recording the forest floor, then the frame tilted upward, slowly, as if lifted by someone standing in front of it. But no one was visible. In another case, searchers found a tent that appeared recently used warm to the touch, despite no footprints leading toward or away from it. The ground around it was undisturbed. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just a tent. And silence. Markers are often found throughout the forests. Plastic tape, ribbons, or string tied around trees. Some are placed by rescue teams to track searched areas. Others are placed by visitors, hoping to find their way back. But there are markers no one can explain. Ribbons tied in patterns, not used by any official group. Knots that don't match hiking or survival techniques. Strings that begin on a trail and lead straight into dense, pathless areas. Locals believe these markers are not for navigation, but for remembrance. Japanese folklore suggests that strong emotional energy can imprint itself on a location. Objects left behind in such places become anchors, binding moments of despair to the physical world. That belief gains weight when you hear what some searchers experience after touching certain items. Sudden dizziness, a rush of intrusive thoughts, vivid mental images that don't feel imagined. One rescuer described picking up a jacket and instantly feeling overwhelmed by grief so intense he dropped it without thinking. He later said the emotion didn't feel like his own. Medical explanations suggest stress reactions. But again, patterns emerge. Multiple searchers react the same way to the same objects, even days apart. Then there are the caves. Aokigahara is riddled with lava caves formed by Mount Fuji's ancient eruptions. Many are unmarked. Some collapse without warning. Others extend far deeper than maps suggest. Inside these caves, sound behaves strangely. Whispers echo without a source. Breathing seems louder than it should. Flashlights flicker, even with fresh batteries. Several caves are known unofficially among search teams as no-entry zones, not because of instability, but because of what has been found inside. Personal belongings arranged in lines. Footprints that begin and end abruptly, and walls marked with scratches that don't match human or animal patterns. Authorities rarely discuss these findings publicly, not because they don't exist, but because acknowledging them raises questions no one wants to answer. What's more disturbing is that some items removed from the forest don't stay removed. Former workers have claimed that objects taken for evidence later reappear in the same locations they were found, despite being stored miles away. These accounts are dismissed officially. Privately, they're taken very seriously. Because Aokigahara doesn't behave like normal terrain, it behaves like a place with memory. And memory, once disturbed, doesn't always remain passive. As awareness of these unexplained discoveries grew, so did the number of people who managed to leave the forest alive, yet refused to ever speak about what they experienced inside. Not because they forgot, but because remembering became unbearable. The ones who escaped, but never returned. Leaving the forest doesn't mean it lets you go. Some survivors say they came back alone, but didn't feel alone. Aokigahara doesn't follow you. Physically, it follows your mind. The most disturbing stories come from those who survived. Not everyone who enters Aokigahara disappears. Some find their way out. Some are rescued, and some walk out on their own, convinced they've escaped. But survival, in this forest, is not the same as freedom. Former hikers and rescue survivors often refuse interviews. Those who do speak share something unsettling. Their experience didn't end at the tree line. The forest came with them. Many describe intense changes immediately after leaving. Familiar places feel distant. Every day, sounds become overwhelming. Silence, especially, triggers panic. One survivor said the moment he stepped back onto a paved road, the world felt too loud, as if reality itself was wrong. Sleep is where it gets worse. Nightmares are common, but these aren't random dreams. Survivors describe the same imagery: endless trees, dark soil, and a feeling of being watched from just behind them. They wake up convinced someone is standing in the room. Some hear whispers while half asleep. Others feel pressure on their chest, like the weight of the forest returning. Psychologists label this post-traumatic stress, but that explanation struggles when people with no prior mental health issues experience identical symptoms after short visits. Even more disturbing are reports of behavioral changes. Survivors mention becoming withdrawn, emotionally distant, or unusually calm about things that once mattered deeply. Family members say their loved ones feel hollow, as if something vital didn't come back with them. One man, rescued after being lost for 2 days, reportedly refused to enter any wooded area again, including city parks. He said trees no longer felt neutral. They felt observant. Several survivors insist that while they were lost, they were not alone. They speak of a constant presence just outside their vision. Not hostile, not friendly, just there. Watching. Waiting. What's chilling is how many describe the same moment inside the forest. A pause. A sudden clarity, a calm voice, suggesting rest. They say it felt logical, comforting, final. The reason they survived, many claim, had nothing to do with strength or intelligence. It was interruption, a noise, a human voice, a sudden reminder of the outside world. One survivor described hearing a rescue team member shout his name. He followed the sound without hesitation. Later, he learned the rescuer had not called out at all. The voice had been his own memory of being cold. Survivors also report physical sensations long after leaving. The smell of damp earth appearing randomly, the sound of footsteps on leaves in empty spaces, shadows in peripheral vision that vanish when focused on. Medical tests show nothing unusual. No neurological damage, no chemical exposure. Yet the experiences persist. Japanese folklore suggests that spirits from places of despair can attach themselves to the living, not to harm them, but to accompany them. These entities are said to fade over time, unless acknowledged. That belief aligns with one final disturbing detail. Several survivors admitted returning to Aokigahara months or years later, not out of curiosity, but because they felt drawn, pulled, as if something unfinished remained. Most turned back before entering. A few stepped inside again. None of them were willing to explain why, because by that point, they had begun to understand something terrifying. Aokigahara doesn't punish those who leave. It doesn't chase them. It simply marks them. And for some, that mark grows stronger with time, especially when the forest decides it's time to collect what was left behind. What the forest keeps forever, some places don't want visitors. They want replacements. Aokigahara doesn't end stories. It stores them. The forest never takes suddenly. It convinces. Leaving doesn't mean being released. Forest has been studied, mapped, and patrolled for decades. Authorities have installed signs, barriers, and surveillance. Volunteers walk the trails regularly, drones scanned from above. And yet, the forest remains unchanged, not physically. But behaviorally, people still report losing direction within minutes. Voices are still heard where no one stands. Objects still appear where they shouldn't. What makes Aokigahara unique is not the number of tragedies associated with it. Many places carry sorrow. What sets it apart is consistency. The same patterns, the same sensations, the same stories, repeated by people who have never met. Researchers attempted to measure the forest's magnetic fields. Results showed irregularities caused by volcanic rock, but nothing strong enough to explain total navigational failure. Psychologists studied survivor testimonies. They found stress responses, trauma indicators, but no explanation for shared experiences between strangers. Folklore scholars point to ancient beliefs. Long before modern history, Aokigahara was considered spiritually unstable. Stories described it as a place where unwanted emotions were abandoned: anger, shame, grief. According to legend, families once brought elderly or sick relatives into remote forests during times of famine, a practice known as ubose. While historical proof is debated, the belief remains deeply rooted. If true, Aokigahara may have been absorbing despair long before it earned its modern reputation. And despair, when concentrated, doesn't fade. It accumulates. That may explain why visitors describe the forest not as threatening, but persuasive. It doesn't force decisions, it presents them gently, patiently, as if continuing a conversation that began long before the visitor arrived. One investigator described the forest as emotionally responsive, not conscious, not alive, but reactive. Those who enter in emotional distress report stronger experiences. Those who enter casually feel watched, but the forest seems to reflect whatever's brought inside. And what's brought in most often is silence. That silence becomes oppressive the longer you stay. Thoughts echo louder. Time feels distorted. Minutes stretch into hours. Movement slows, not from fatigue, but from indecision. It's in that stillness that the forest does its work, not by taking people, but by convincing them they belong. Some hikers have said the forest felt familiar, despite never visiting before. Others claimed it felt like a place they were meant to return to. That feeling is dangerous, because belonging removes urgency. Belonging removes resistance. Search teams continue their work. Lives are saved. People are guided back to safety. But even they acknowledge a truth spoken quietly among themselves. The forest always feels fuller than the number of people inside it, as if it's holding more than what can be seen. Perhaps that's why certain paths feel heavier, why some areas remain avoided, even by professionals, why some objects, when touched, leave lasting impressions. Aokigahara does not need legends to be frightening. It doesn't rely on myths or exaggeration. It exists, it waits, and it remembers. So if you ever stand at its edge, looking into the endless green, and feel an unexpected calm, not fear, not excitement, just a sense that stepping forward would make everything quiet, remember tease. The forest does not ask you to stay. It simply makes staying feel reasonable. And once that thought feels natural, Aokigahara already knows your name. Aokigahara Forest still stands at the base of Mount Fuji. Quiet, unchanged, patient. People continue to visit, some for curiosity, some for peace, and some because something inside them feels unfinished. The forest doesn't remember faces, it remembers emotions, and emotions always find their way back. So if you ever find yourself surrounded by trees, wrapped in silence, feeling calmer than you should, don't ask why. Ask how long the forest has been waiting. There are places in this world that don't need ghosts to be haunted. Aokigahara is one of them. And the most disturbing part is that it's still there, waiting for the next story. If this story stayed with you, you already know what to do. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel.